So, if you're wondering what the noise is, my cassette player broke, and just like my typewriter, I fixed it. I'll send you pictures of the insides that I fixed. But what happened was, it wasn't like these. I don't know if you can see that, but these two things, they weren't spinning, but you could hear a motor running. And you couldn't fast forward or rewind or play or record. Nothing would work except for stop and eject. So it's like, okay. And it says to not fix it yourself, to get a professional to fix it. But it's from the 60s and no one fixes them anymore. It's just like, well, it broke, get a new one. But there is no new one. So, also I paid for it and I'd prefer to not return it. So, I was like, okay. Even though it said, do not try to fix it yourself because you may die, I did it myself. And I'm not dead yet. And I don't know if it was saying because of electric shock or because of fumes. Anyways, so it took 2 days to fix this. And it was confusing because in the photos that I'll send you, it says but it has a bunch of, it looks confusing. So I thought it was because the belt was old, but it was actually, there was a belt that connects to a motor. It's a black rubber band kind of feel belt. And it connects the motor to a wheel that has a gear attached to it, and then there's a gear next to it with a gear under it, with a gear next to it, and then when you press fast forward or rewind, it pushes that gear closer to a gear underneath a piece of plastic, and it's black. And it pushes the gear below this gear that's right next to this gear with the spinny wheel thing over here, and there's a gear under here that connects to this one, and that connects to another thing that plays something, and the gear under it had fallen off, but I didn't know that had happened, and the belt had slid off of the wheel. I thought that was the only problem. It wasn't the only problem. That little gear had fallen off of the bottom, and I just heard something rattling inside. So it's like, oh, let's open it up. So I opened it up, and then I was like, oh, it's the belt. The belt fell off, or slipped off. But I'm like, that doesn't sound like it would rattle, but we can check. Anyway, so I put the belt back on, and then I closed it back up, screwed in all the screws. Then it still rattled, but it would play. Although you couldn't rewind or fast forward still. So it's like, okay, what is rattling in here? We'll find that, and if it's a part, I'll put that back into the place that it needs to be. But when I looked at it, there wasn't any place that looked like it was missing something. Everything looked complete. Because there was a little part of the axle for that gear that spins with a gear under it. The gear under it had fallen off, and there was a little exposed axle underneath a piece of plastic. So I couldn't even see the axle. So it's like everything looked complete. Anyways, so then I close it up again, and then I still hear something rattling, and it won't fast forward or rewind. So I open it up again after putting in all the screws, which is really bad because one of the screws is underneath the batteries, and I kept putting them in after screwing in the screw, so I had to take them out and then unscrew the screw and then do all this stuff. Anyway, so then when I opened it up again, I found a little gear. And I'm like, oh, that must be the thing that's rattling. And it was, because when I shook it, it didn't rattle anymore when I took the gear out. So it was the gear. And I had no idea what it went to, so I'm like, it's probably not important. It still works, but I didn't try out the fast forward and rewind. So, I don't close it up again, and I didn't. And so I try to play it, just play it. And the play won't even work. And then I look in again, and one of the wires that's connected to the batteries has broken off. So I have to solder that back on, which luckily I have a soldering iron. So I soldered that back on. It's very sturdy now. It looks the same. So that's a good thing. And now it works, because I finally figured out where to put that little gear underneath that. At first I tried to put a little plastic piece to keep that gear from falling off, because the gear on top kept falling off. But that wasn't the problem. It was the little gear that kept it there and wasn't there, that needed to be able to touch another gear to make that gear spin. It's very mechanical. I can fix old technology. Newer technology, I can't understand a thing. If it's mechanical, I can figure it out. The car, I could figure out how it works and then probably fix it myself. It might take a few years, but I could do it. And, like my typewriter, that was mechanical. I can fix that. I can test things like, oh, okay, does that work? Does that move that thing? Does that touch that? And if that does touch that, then that must touch this, and this must move, which makes this work. So I finally figured it out, and it took me less than a day, but it took me the span of 2 days. So it took me 2 days, but the time I worked on it was only about like a couple of hours. The rest of the time I was just thinking about other stuff. Anyways, because it broke at the very end of yesterday, so anyways, I fixed it without any YouTube videos, any instructions whatsoever, and I fixed it all by myself. With a screwdriver, of course, and tweezers, but still. Now I understand how this cassette player works, and it's really cool. I would explain it to you, but it's, I'd have to take it all apart again and then take a video of that, and I don't think you want to see that, and I don't want to do that, so it's pretty cool. Anyways, I'll send you the photos now.